Hello everyone. Today we are talking about your eFolio and I'm wearing my fancy bow tie for the occasion. So I hope that you enjoy this video. So if you were away when I explained the eFolio during class or you just need to check on a couple of things, then this is the video for you to have a look at. So in terms of your eFolio is a summary of your learning and what we do in class together over the next 8 or 9 weeks or so. So what I'm looking for is you being able to think about everything that we do in class and either talk to me about that if you choose to do a video diary or write about that in your eFolio. I would have explained in class that how you present your learning is flexible and up to you, and you can negotiate that with me. A lot of people do it as a PowerPoint or Keynote, but increasingly I'm having people create video diaries, and I'll try and show you a bit of an example of a pretty special one that was submitted last term. So what is your eFolio? Your eFolio, in the simplest terms, talks to me about what we did in class. So you will be describing the activities. It might be a performance you worked on, it might be a warm-up activity that we did as a class, it might be a new game that I taught you. Whatever it is, you would describe that so someone who perhaps doesn't do drama with us would understand what you were doing. So if mum or dad or your caregiver or your auntie or uncle chose to have a look at your eFolio, they would know what you were learning about in drama because you have described the activities. Next, you tell me about what you learned doing those activities. So what were the skills that you developed? Remember that we always talk about that at the end of everything we do. So that's when you need to be listening carefully and being able to talk to me about why we do what we do. So not just telling me what we did, but why we do it and why you think those skills are important in this subject. And lastly, and this part is the part I hope that you find reasonably simple, although some people can find it more challenging. You talk to me about what you thought about what we did. So did you really enjoy something more than something else? And can you tell me why? Did you find something more challenging? And can you tell me why? Can you compare one activity to another? There are 3 main assessment tasks that we do, and you might prefer mime over looking at a script, but I want you to try and think about why. We'll play different games. You might prefer one over the other because they have different purposes. Can you tell me why? So they're the 3 things that you'll be focusing on for your eFolio that will ultimately show you about your growth or your development in this subject. And that's what that picture there represents. Okay? Next, all that. The rubric is on Daymap. We will have looked at it together and talked about the language of it and perhaps some of the tips and tricks for your eFolio to make sure you're successful. But all the way along during the term, we'll have our checkpoints. So every couple of weeks, I'll check in with how you're going, and that's the time to ask me questions if you need to. But you can see here the 4 key criteria that we will have talked about in class. And I've really just summarised these things on the previous page, but it's important as you look at or create your eFolio that you're referring back to this rubric because this outlines for you the key things that at the end I'll be looking at. You can see, firstly, I'm looking for that description of the activity. And it says here, I'll be looking for detailed, thoughtful, clear description of a range of class activities. That one's important. So I don't just want you talking to me about games. We do them, but you also work on your performance work. So you need to make sure you're talking to me about rehearsals. Who have you worked with? What are the ideas that you had? How did you come up with your performances? And describing the process of developing your work. So not just talk to me about games. We do warm-up activities. We play games. You do performances. So all of those need to be in your description. Terminology needs to be correct. So if we are discussing concentration, I will want to see you use that word properly. If we have started looking at tableaus, I will want to see you using that word and spelling it correctly. And there'll be a number of different new words I'll probably teach you, and you'll need to make sure that you're using them correctly throughout your eFolio. The second one is analysis. Basically, you're looking at more than just describing, but also analysing, and that means talking to me about the skills that you have developed. The skills that you have developed. So you have done a really good job so far talking to me about why we do what we do. Within your eFolio, you need to show an understanding of why we do what we do. And that means talking about skills. And we'll look at an example of that in a moment. And this one here, so not just talking about your work, but being able to discuss the work of others as well, because you're also an observer and an audience member. So as an audience member, what are you watching and what are you thinking about as you watch other people's work? Lastly, personal reflection. This is where you comment on what you thought about what we did. And we'll look at some examples of that in a moment. So you share your thoughts about what we did. And that might vary from one thing to another. Those three parts of the rubric are what I'm primarily looking at when I assess your work. However, I'm also wanting you to be creative with how you present your work, because it's an opportunity during this subject to be creative. And I'll show you some examples, probably in class, about using creativity with your work. You don't just have to create slabs of writing. You may choose to do the video diary. You could do a combination. Some people might negotiate to do an interview with me. But generally, your eFolio, if you do it as a written piece, there is text, so there's actual writing that you do, and also perhaps images, which could be photos from the lesson or pictures that you find on the net. So it could be a combination of things. This is a good example of an eFolio where just describing one lesson, all of those parts of the eFolio are covered. Just trying to get rid of this little bit of pen here. Anyway, we'll keep that one there. So if you have a look at this example, and I'll allow you time to have a read, within just describing one lesson, this person has covered the three things that I'm looking for from the rubric. They've described the activity, they've weaved in talking about why we did it or what the skills were that were developed, and they've also given a personal comment. So within talking about just one lesson, those three things have been covered. So if you have a little bit of a read of that one, and you can see some of the vocabulary being used really well. So concentration is one of the things. Improvisation is something that I'll teach you about. And this first part of this lesson write-up describes a warm-up activity, and it's actually one that I've done with you already. And so the description is quite clear for this first part of the write-up. Here is another word being used. I've already talked to you about the cyclorama in the room, bio box. So I can see there that this student has thought about the language and the terminology that we use within the classroom. And then they've sort of summarised how they feel. Overall, my first lesson was a solid start to the drama unit, and I was almost disappointed when the lunch bell rang. So that gives me the idea that the person didn't really want to listen, so they'd had a pretty positive experience. In the middle here, they've described that something was tremendous fun, so it lets me know that they felt quite positive about the activity as well. I'm now going to find some other examples to share with you. Hello, hope you're still with me. So this is a different example of an e-folio where I'll encourage you to use a mixture of writing and text to talk about what you've learnt. This one opens up with the drama masks, which represent comedy and tragedy. And then the opening comment talks about a game that I will teach you. So halfway through here, it starts here. Whoosh was a good warm-up game too. It is perfect for bringing out confidence and it's super fun. So this one here was talking about the skills that they think are being developed. And here's the personal comment. They thought it was super fun. And sometimes just giving me something simple like that lets me know what you thought about it. The activity. You don't need to write a paragraph, but sometimes you'll want to write more than other times. Whoosh had many strange rules that we needed to follow. You weren't allowed to stop and think when you were going to pass on the whoosh or when you were going to scream freak out. This game was perfect to get to know everyone, improve ensemble, and I thought it was a really enjoyable game. So we've got a bit of a description of the game. Probably I'd ask for a little bit more so someone could understand it, but lots of good comments in terms of the skills being developed and also what they thought about the game. And here makes it very clear that they thought it was incredibly fun. And if you say something like, definitely something I want to teach my friends, I suppose I get the idea it's something that you enjoyed. Now, guys, you don't have to tell me that you loved everything. I want you to be honest. There are some things that maybe you don't enjoy so much, but I want you to be able to tell me why. What was it about that activity or game or warm-up that perhaps wasn't as easy for you to do? If I just flick through this one, so we've got some writing, then using a picture to explain one of the things that the student has learned, and then another picture that they've snapped actually in the theatre to talk about learning about the stage, and it goes on from there. So a good mix of text and images. Primarily I'm looking at your explanations. You can have a little bit of a read of this slide because I've obviously chosen examples that are good e-folios. And I'll find another example as well. So a different example, this one was just done as a Word document, but still if I scroll through, you can see that the person has played around with the type of text that they've used. So there's a mixture there to make it look interesting. There's a mixture of images and text throughout. But this one is a really good example of combining the three elements from the rubric. I love the beginning of this one, unreal. I had my first ever drama lesson today and one word to describe it is unreal. In drama, I met my teacher. Her name was Miss Davy. Can I just say this one's important to me? So writing my name, it is spelled Ms. D-A-V-E-Y, so please try and get that one correct. She was really fun and not too strict. I haven't had to be with my classes, so that's a good thing. Talks about the class procedures and then goes on to talk about the concentration game, which is one that we have played together. So the image here probably goes with what's being discussed and talks about concentration being a really important skill in the class. Lesson 2. Wow, I learned new things today. It's called tableau. The word comes from French, meaning a group of models or motionless figures representing a scene from a story or from history. So I can see a little bit of research has been done there. In drama, Miss Davy wanted us to make a group of about 6. I can't remember the people. There are 3 main things that make a tableau. Focal point, looking at one object, contact, and levels. The one thing to avoid is masking. So what I like about that one sentence is this student showing me they know what a tableau is. So they're talking through to me as though I'm somebody who doesn't understand and they've explained it, which is good to see. Then they've given me a picture here that's similar to a tableau. So they can use an image to explain something perhaps rather than writing. And then it goes on from there. So you can see this one continues. We've got lots of writing. I might put this one up on DayMap as a good example. I'll pause just at another section where it talks about working within a group. and how they develop their ideas and some of the discussion around working